Namaskar, welcome back to Media Scan, your weekend dose of headlines, controversies and perspectives. Viewers, for the last few weeks, we have been trying to understand and to explore the situation in West Asia in the Indian context, in the context of the Indian media. Earlier this week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi cautioned the people in an important event why the perils of appeasement politics can go to the extent of saving and standing with terror with the enemies of humanity. Why did the Prime Minister feel the need to make this statement? Does it have any bearing on what is going on with regard to the developments in the Israel-Hamas conflict? We'll try to decipher various aspects of this comment and the wider perils which are connected to appeasement politics vis-à-vis the security of the nation. To talk about this, I have here with me Sanjay Singh, well-known commentator on political affairs and current affairs. You have been listening to him on Media Scan on earlier occasions. Namaskar, Sanjay Singh, welcome to the show. Also with me, another political commentator, editor in the Tribune, Aditi Tandon. She has been covering the opposition, particularly the Congress party, for a long time and understands what drives the political narrative of the Congress. Aditi Tandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And here with me, Dr. Abhinav Pandya, an expert on radicalization, on geopolitical affairs, who has been keenly watching and following, also holding a lot of discussions and seminars on what's going on in West Asia right now. Welcome to the show, Abhinav Pandya.
Namaskar.
And Sanjay Singh, may I come to you first? Sir, we have all seen the Prime Minister's comment where he very particularly said that appeasement politics is so dangerous that people have been often seen to be going to courts and standing even with those who are terrorists. Why do you think he felt the need to make this comment at this juncture?
I think this problem plagues our country. This has plagued in the past, but in the last 9 years, this has manifested in a new kind of shape and new kind of narratives, whereby when a situation as critical as, say, this Hamas-Israel conflict or any domestic issue arises, then you see a whole lot of people get into one side, be it receiving payments from foreign agencies, to some NGOs, to some publications, or siding with, just to point out, I'm amazed that for so many newspapers, you see editorials and op-eds on every issue, and there are comments and comments. But I'm yet to see an editor op-ed on Hamas leader addressing a virtual rally in Kerala. No prominent English newspaper, at least their newspaper editorials, does not have any any comment on this. You see Sonia Gandhi post India's abstention on Jordan sponsored resolution in UN.
Yes.
Sonia Gandhi wrote an op-ed in the Hindu, and barring the first paragraph, which was a belated realization on part of Congress, because the CWC, their highest policy and decision-making body, did not have a word on what happened in Israel on October 7. And this was all appeasement for Palestine, and so to say, not to Palestine, to address, to appease a section of population out here, Muslims, so to say. When this happens, and Sonia Gandhi's piece was kind of an apologist piece for Hamas, whereby she also was critical of India's abstention from UN resolution. India did not side with a resolution that was sponsored by Canada, but India, of course, abstained from this particular what was one-way kind of resolution, which India in the past routinely supported. And that, I think, provoked Sonia Gandhi and a whole lot of other people to comment on that particular aspect. But nobody commented. Of course, there was news, but there was total outrage on social media. But on mainline, Hamas leader addressing provocative statements made by him, and to begin with, as to why that particular thing had happened.
Fine.
When Kerala government
yes.
kind of wishy-washy it. What Prime Minister said was not limited to this context.
Yes, understood.
Issues.
Very well put, Sanjay Singh. Can I ask Aditi Tandon here? Aditi, to paraphrase what Sanjay Singh has said, first there was a CWC resolution, which we all know what kind of an outrage and reaction it created in the country. Then came India's position at the UNGA, which was a non-binding resolution, and we took the stance not to vote on it either way because it had no mention of the Hamas attack that took place on October 7th and 8th. And yet, we see Congress activists in Kerala, you know, they are always the quickest to file a case on anything which happens in the state. But nobody took the initiative to file a case when, you know, a Hamas terrorist was addressing virtually the people of the state. And we know what the things that he said, I do not want to repeat them here. And then we have Sonia Gandhi's article where she said Israel is trying to, you know, exacting revenge upon the people of Palestine. The point remains that while, you know, on the face of it, it looks like they are standing for the innocents of Palestine. But is Sanjay Singh's contention right that while deciding its articulation on what is happening in West Asia, the Congress is actually looking at a particular vote bank in the country, and it is more to do with the minorities in India rather than what the people in Palestine are facing?
See, Smita, the Congress has always tied itself up in knots when it comes to issues of terror and also issues of minority appeasement. In fact, this has been the Achilles heel of the Congress politically. I will take you back to the A.K. Antony Committee report that came in the aftermath of Congress's complete decimation in the 2014 Lok Sabha elections.
Exactly.
Where Antony himself pinpointed that overt minority appeasement is the principal cause of Congress party's downfall. Now you fast forward to the CWC resolution on the Israel-Hamas war.
Yes.
You see, the CWC did not condemn, you know, the Hamas attack on Israel, but it did take a very strong position on the rights of Palestinian people and on also their rights to the right to dignified living. So when the Congress was asked that there were differences within the Congress Working Committee on how to articulate its position on this very brutal conflict that was unleashed on Israel, and then of course Israel's retaliatory attacks are also unjustified because ultimately civilians are dying. But how do you articulate that position in the Congress Working Committee? And there were differences in the party. But then when the party was asked the next day, Gaurav Gogoi, speaking on behalf of the Congress, says that there were no differences. And Jairam Ramesh, who's the party's General Secretary Communications, has made the position clear on X, on the X handle. But you see, Congress Working Committee is the highest decision-making body of the party, Smita. The position you take in that panel is the final position of the party. It is the same CWC which took...
So was Jairam Ramesh's tweet or the post on X which came a post facto development?
It was a parallel development.
Seeing the reactions?
No, it was a parallel development. In fact, that is also interesting that the Congress Working Committee takes a certain position and then there's a confusion in the party. So that's what I'm telling you, that the Congress party struggles with its position and articulation on issues of terror.
So I have a quick query here, Aditi. I want to come to Dr. Pandya after that. Because of what you raised, you gave reference to the A.K. Antony Committee, which was the report which came after the Congress severe losses in 2014. My straight question to you is, what the position that Congress leaders are adopting at this point of time, is it because they refuse to take lessons from what happened in the past, or is it because they are consciously taking this position because at least one community's votes will be ensured?
Yeah. I agree with the latter position that you've taken, Smita, because Karnataka has shown overwhelmingly that a certain community voted for the Congress en bloc. And the JDS loss in Karnataka is a clear indication that a certain community is clearly backing the Congress. So the Congress does want to repeat that electoral template across the states. We have Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh elections coming up. We have Telangana, where the Muslim population is very important for a victory. So I would tend to agree with your latter position that the Congress party is consciously taking this position.
Fine, fine. So that gives, gives birth to another related question, and that is, if the Congress is consciously taking these positions, what does it portend for the security of the country? But I'll come to you on that in a short while. Before that, may I ask you, Dr. Abhinav Pandya, Sanjay Singh was just mentioning how, there are links globally with many organizations. Some of them have been pointed out very particularly. There are organizations which are funded by the Soros and his group of, the web of companies and organizations and foundations they have. And then there are other powers, some of them certainly not happy with India's rise in the global arena. Do you think the positions adopted by some political parties in our country is related to these developments? And what is your information in that context, considering you have been following the entire subject of radicalization very keenly in the global system?
Thank you very much, Smita ji. So there are two aspects to this question. First is appeasement politics per se, like purely for getting votes and all that. And the second part is that what they actually are. So ideologically, I feel that if you look at these people's history, they are doing what they believe in. Like, this is not something which is purely out of appeasement. These are the people who actually, who were silent over the Mopla killings back in 1920s. Okay, and they are the people under whose regime someone like Zakir Naik flourished very strongly. He was openly abusing Hindu religion, and his speeches incited the ISIS fighters in Bangladesh. In the 1971 war, when the Pakistanis were massacring Hindu population in Bangladesh, these people were silent. They were saying that let's not give it a communal color. So they are what they are actually. They are the people.
So this is out of ideological position?
Ideological position as well as appeasement politics. You just see there were people who were saying 26/11 RSS ki sazish. There were people from the same party, from the Congress party, who were present at the inauguration of all these things. Okay, some of these people, they went to, and the people who are the part of their ecosystem, they went to the US CIRF hearings in the US, and they were saying that, well, the minorities are not being treated well in India. So these people, right from the beginning, they have a very strong anti-Hindu bias, and we must understand, because this is not something new. If you go back to 1951, they are the same people who are opposing the construction of Somnath temple, saying that, this is not the, India's policy. India has to be secular. They are the people who distributed millions and trillions of money, like dollars, to the Waqf board organizations and all. So this, I must admit that this is not something new. Their policy towards such Islamist and such extremist organizations goes back long in time, and the pro-Hamas policy or the pro-Palestine policy, without any reasonable justification. Just see the PLO. They never supported India on the Kashmir issue. On the last 3-4 wars which we have fought with Pakistan, PLO was always siding with Pakistan. And then, despite that, we were giving awards to Mr. Yasser Arafat, all the Nehru Shanti Puruskar, and all kinds of appeasement politics. It's been there since a very long time. In Kashmir also, if you see, under the Congress party, this whole ecosystem of appeasement flourished. Jamaat-e-Islami flourished. Even the interlocutors which were sent to Kashmir as late as 2012-13, they were also very sympathetic to these Islamist parties and the Hurriyat
and in fact,
extremists.
This event that Sanjay Singh was referring to, where a Hamas terrorist was addressing virtually Khalid Mashal, that was also a Jamaat-e-Islami congregation.
Yes. In Kerala, if you see, this whole ecosystem of Islamism has prevailed over the last 30-40 years. PFI has prevailed. Not that the Indian agencies didn't know about it. Certainly, they knew about it. They were sending reports about that. But who was being sympathetic to these things? The state government and the central government. No, even back in 1950s, like right from over the last 60, 70 years, all kind of, Deobandi and Wahhabi extremists have occupied positions in the CWC or like, even in the educational system of India. So, I mean, I really believe that, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised, and this is something which, goes back back in time. Yeah.
So we shouldn't be surprised is what Abhinav Pandya is arguing. Certainly there are enough examples in the past, particularly the UPA regime, when it was told, that Simi and Indian Mujahideen, etc., had quite a free run in the country, and this is not just a theory, because we saw almost all the big and small cities of the country having some or the other terror attack. Sanjay Singh, it is fine to say that the global agencies are working in order to, destabilize our country or to push radicalization within India. But can we forget that within the country there are elements, both political and in the non-political sector, who are quite openly supporting elements who are enemies of the nation? And what does this portend for the security of the country? Let us forget the vote bank politics for a moment.
I think security and vote bank politics are often related, Smita, for some people.
Unfortunately so.
Yeah, there are two situations here. A, in modern days, you don't necessarily need to send an army to destabilize a government in a country or to destabilize their polity and economy. This is an era of information, and information war funded by agencies, funded by billionaires, funded by people with certain motives. And if you find your sleeper cell could be here, you have parties who are sympathetic, and if they think that this is going to help to their cause, either by due to their kind of their innocence, not or by design. In that particular case, this information war causing some kind of a situation whereby we have seen NGOs after NGOs being blocked by Modi government. Why? Because those NGOs were being funded by outside agencies not to actually do charitable work, not to actually do social work to the intended beneficiary, but to create a situation which could disrupt India's economic growth.
Sanjay Singh, I'll interrupt you here. I will interrupt you here. It will please you to know that we dedicated an entire episode of Media Scan earlier to discuss this, the entire gambit of this information war happening in the context of Israel-Hamas. But quickly, sir, I want to tell you that whereas the MHA and all the concerned agencies have been very, very prompt in trying to identify NGOs, who get funded for social work, for working for the people, but their agendas are pretty questionable. However, considering the way what happened on October 7th is, almost being put out of the headlines, and everything is now focused on what is happening regarding the attacks in Gaza. Do you think the information is the war is getting totally tilted towards Hamas, and somewhere the October 7th events are getting blacked out?
I think resilience of Israeli people is tremendous. I've seen many kind of leading anchors and people who are hosting those events. Some of them are completely one-sided. But if there is a representative from Israel, they're very resilient, they're very strong, and those are strong voices based on substance and based on arguments and facts. What has happened here? There is a differentiation between Palestine, their aspiration, and Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Yes, there may be some legitimate aspirations of people in that region, but fact remains when you say that this is Palestinian and one state theory, which since the time Gandhi is supported, so on and so forth. When a person like Sonia Gandhi makes a justification as to what happened on October 7 because Israel kind of occupied and whatever, I think that justification is very harmful, because many people for terrorism in India, they also cite certain reasons that they were victimized and they have so this reason, this region. Going by that logic, whole of India's population should have been radicalized after going into our medieval ages, and also later on as what has happened and what is still happening in several parts of the country. I fail to understand one thing: what Indian Muslims have to do with Palestinian Muslims or Muslims in Gaza. accept
right.
their
And it is,
ideological link,
yes.
and same is happening across the world.
And also, why do political parties? Yes.
I can imagine this conflict has an economic repercussion. This conflict has other repercussions on international and domestic situations as the time goes by, if the conflict escalates further. But I fail to understand what real similarity is there in terms of aspirations, in terms of their livelihood, and in terms of other things.
Fine, fine. And this also begets the question, why do political parties think then that Indian Muslims will, completely en masse vote for them just because, they do not condemn the terror attack of Hamas? That's a very convoluted situation. But if I may come to Aditi Tandon here. Aditi Tandon, very quickly a one-line answer on why do parties like the Congress or their allies think that if they do not condemn the Hamas, they should be able to get all the votes of one particular minority. Please clarify on this, and then I want to come to you on a larger question.
No, because, there is a tendency, as the earlier panelists said, to equate Indian Muslims with Muslims everywhere. The Muslim Brotherhood is a concept that transcends borders, Smita. It is not something that is specific to India. There is this sense of victimhood in the Muslim community, and they do tend to express solidarity with one another across the world. But you see, even in this grim situation where, political parties are unable to come together on an issue of terror, there are certain parties who have taken a strong position. To point out that Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin did book 3 to 4 people for pro-Palestinian protests in Tamil Nadu.
Right.
In Coimbatore. So there are exceptions.
And which invited him a lot of flack from other so-called secular parties.
Exactly.
However, the question I wanted to actually come to Aditi is this. We are seeing all kinds of photographs and videos, full of posts from the Congress media department trying to show Rahul Gandhi as a staunch Shiv Bhakt, performing aartis on ghats, inside temples, and, bowing to the gods. In fact, Mrs. Priyanka Vadra as well. So there is a concerted attempt to push a very, very Hindu kind of an image. And in fact, one person of the Congress backroom team even went so far as to say that it is Rahul Gandhi and not Narendra Modi who deserves to be at the inauguration of the Bhavya Ram temple in Ayodhya. Now the question is, on the one hand, the Congress is pushing this narrative, and on the other hand is their resolution and the article by Mrs. Gandhi and other comments. Where does the party reconcile with these two positions or the messaging?
Smita, we've often discussed while covering Congress that the biggest challenge for the Congress party is clarity in its ideological position, which is missing. You have to take a position which has to be clear in the minds of your voters. Are you a, pro-minority party? Are you a Hindutva party? Are you a soft Hindutva party? So as I said earlier in my remarks, tying itself up in knots is the position of the party. For example, let me tell you that in the Chintan Shivir in Udaipur, where a detailed discussion was held on how the Congress should articulate its ideological position in the light of Prime Minister Modi's very strong Hindutva narrative, there were two chief ministers who openly said that we have to adopt a fine line. They advocated soft Hindutva, Bhupesh Baghel of Chhattisgarh and Kamal Nath of Madhya Pradesh. Both the leaders have been following soft Hindutva policies in poll-bound states.
Yes, we are seeing their campaign continuously.
Yeah. So you see, they were opposed in the Chintan Shivir deliberations. Majority of the Congress leaders were opposed to their position.
Fine.
My understanding is that the Congress has to first reconcile its position internally. Then it will go external with what it has to project to its voters. That is the problem.
Absolutely. It's all in the messaging. But Aditi, I'm afraid I'll have to stop you here because I have very little time left. And I want to really ask something very important related to our nation's positioning as well as our security to Dr. Abhinav Pandya. Abhinav Pandya, it's fine for political parties to take positions vis-a-vis their vote bank. And I mean, we have been seeing this in politics. It happens all over the world rather, whether it is Canada, US, UK, Germany, everywhere. We are seeing political parties taking position on the West Asia situation with a mind and with an eye on their political votes. However, the bigger question here is, considering the kind of things that have been reported from Kerala, considering the kind of reactions which have come from some campuses within the country, and protests all trying, people trying to protest in the name of Palestine, but clearly supporting Hamas. What do you think this tells us about the security of the country? We have seen the period during the UPA regime when terror attacks had become so common that people had almost started becoming scared of going out. And the Prime Minister made a very clear reference to this when he said that, do you want to bring back those days again? So is this becoming an issue in the political discourse, or do you think it will remain in the sidelines?
Smitaji, first of all, I think Indian strategic establishment and the political people, like the people in the policy making, must realize that India's biggest security challenge is this internal Islamic radicalization. I mean, I consider it far more dangerous than the Chinese challenge or even the Pakistani challenge. This is the biggest security challenge in India. And let me state it outrightly that events in Afghanistan and events in West Asia directly embolden the Islamic extremists here, because I have come across various extremist clerics and the former militants who say that, well, Taliban defeated USA. This is a great victory and a great model for us. In West Asia, Hamas orchestrated and conducted such a big attack on Israel, the invincible power. This is also a great source of inspiration. So this has a direct bearing upon what people are doing here. And coming to the second part now, our policy must be very well thought and must be very rational. We first of all, we must understand that where our national interests lie. Our national security lie in the suppression and the crushing of the extremist and the terrorist elements. So, secondly, most of these groups, like people who are pro-Palestine, they have never supported India against Pakistan or even on the Kashmir issue. Israel has been India's greatest ally. So I think we should have a change in the policy. Definitely the policy under Modi government has changed, but still we need to be much more clear. First, we need to designate Hamas as a terrorist organization. Unfortunately, we have not designated Hamas as a terrorist organization yet. So we have to designate Hamas as a terrorist organization. And secondly, I must say that even in the diplomatic circles, the thoughts regarding this whole issue are very outmoded. They are loaded with the Cold War mindset, and a lot of illiteracy and, I would say, lack of awareness is prevailing. And most of the people talk about this two-state solution. Okay, now I mean, they need to educate themselves that what kind of solution they are talking. Already there were 3 states existing. Israel vacated Gaza in 2007. So Gaza was being ruled by Hamas. Then there was West Bank, and then there was Israel. This 3-state solution was not working in West Asia, and then they are just harping on the same thing that there need to be 2-state solution. They must understand that it's not about the 2 or 3 states. Hamas want to eliminate Israel. Hamas want to kill all the Jews because there are Jews. In India, the Islamic extremists, they want to bring Sharia law. They want to kill Hindus because they are Hindus. It's a religious issue, which is clearly mentioned in the covenant of a terrorist organization like Hamas, or let's say any other organization like Lashkar, Jaish. For them, it's a purely religious issue.
Right. So as Dr. Pandya has just mentioned here, very, very clearly put, terror has to be recognized for what it is. Political parties, it is okay for them if they want to address a certain segment of the voting population. But what we cannot compromise here is that national security is above any vote bank politics considerations. When it comes to the security of the nation, when it comes to articulation of our position vis-a-vis terror, we need to say it in so many words. No consideration for vote bank should override that. And that, viewers, is what we have concluded from our very, very interesting, engaging conversation with our guest this evening. We'll come back to you next weekend with a more interesting topic. Before that, may I please thank profusely Aditi Tandon, always ready to join our show whenever we have requested her. Also, Sanjay Singh, well-known political commentator, known to speak his mind, and Dr. Abhinav Pandya, one of the few people in the country who have an authority on the very, very threatening and serious issue of radicalization. Thank you, guests.
Thank you.
Very soon, 5 states will be going to vote, and it remains to be seen whether the developments of West Asia, which have become a campaign point on both the sides, can influence the voting pattern in our country. But on that note, it's a wrap-up on Media Scan for this evening. Do join us next weekend. Namaskar.